Statistics indicate that anxiety affects 1 in 4 people in Australia, which is why joining us for a chat about her personal battle with anxiety is a woman on the go, CEO and founder of braveenough.org. She's a counsellor, radio host and a Christian speaker. Please welcome Danni Synot.
Thanks, Fiona. Thanks for having me here. So exciting to be with you.
It's good to have you here. Now, just talking on anxiety, you've got a plethora of a portfolio, you've got a hectic schedule, but I know that you have suffered with anxiety. Can you give us a bit of a background as to how you discovered about that and also your journey with anxiety?
Yeah, I think anxiety for me was something that's very generational. My grandma, my mum, myself, and one of my children as well also struggle with it. So, yeah, I can remember even as a teenager having panic attacks.
Right.
Mum
so it started quite young.
were. Yeah, yeah. And probably, when I really think about it, probably even as a child. But yeah, in my adult years after I lost a baby, it really reared its head during that experience of grief to the point that I couldn't even leave the house. So it had become very debilitating, heart palpitations, not being able to breathe, having this feeling that, I guess impending doom, feeling shaky, not being able to eat, losing a ton of weight. Yeah, it can be really severe.
It progressively got worse over the years, would you say?
Yeah.
From when you were a young child?
Look, I think for me it was more, there were seasons of it, like when life was overwhelming or I had to process or deal with something and not having those strategies in place, and certainly at that point in my life not having faith. Yeah.
So Danni, what were some strategies? What have you done over the years to help?
Oh boy, look, I think that's been a real journey, Julie, but certainly faith has been a big one. Realising that God is the one that's in control when we feel out of control. And essentially that's what anxiety is. It's that feeling of being out of control. Certainly I think diet, sleep, massive. But the big one I think is our thought processes. Like we tend to go in our anxiety to the what ifs. What if this happens? What if that happens? And creative people, as I am, tend to do that. We're future thinking and it's so easy to go there. So a strategy that I used was, instead of saying what if, it was so what.
Yeah.
You know?
I'm kind of curious though, because you lost your baby, and then you have 3 now. How did you go through? How did you overcome? What was your thought process to get from that anxiety with the first baby?
Yeah. Well, look, the subsequent pregnancy with my daughter Hannah was an anxious one because, are we going to lose her again? Was it something I did? It really, until I had her in my arms. In fact, I was so anxious during the birth that I was holding her in. They ended up having to give me an epidural and suction her out in a hurry. Yeah. But once she was born, it went for that period of time.
Yeah.
So you talk about faith and you talk about how that played a big part in recovering from anxiety. Can you talk to us more about that and how you discovered your journey with faith and having God impact on your life?
Well, my faith journey started before my healing from anxiety did. So I think that's been a progressive thing. But when it really came to the crux, like the last big bout that I had with it, where I really thought I need to overcome this because it's affecting my kids.
Right.
I can't function. I can no longer minister because I had to literally stop speaking, my television work, my ministry, everything. And God walked me through that journey, sent people to, guide me through. But as far as a faith thing, it really was about trust. Do I believe who God says he is? Do I believe that God is love? Do I believe that God is in control? And when I look at the examples of people with anxiety in the Bible, so for example, Moses felt so underqualified, all of that kind of jazz, was being called into something huge, and God just kept saying to him, I'm with you. But what if this happens? What if that happens? Well, I'll do this and I'll do that. And so I started to play that out in my own life, in trust in God, like really trusting who God was. And when you get to that place of, God is the Alpha, the Omega, the beginning and the end, God is the tabernacle of God, God in us, God is Emmanuel, God in us, we are never then out of the presence of God.
How do you get there? How do you get there?
It's a journey. It's a journey. And I think you really need to choose to believe even when you don't see it. And I
It's
think
little steps, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
giving trust into the little moments and acknowledging them, and then being able to say, okay, so next time I'm going to put my trust back into you, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's that.
And it's not-
little journeys.
Yeah, but it's the not. There's a fabulous book called. Oh my gosh, Dr. Claire Weeks, Self-Help for Your Nerves, and she talks about floating through it rather than fighting the anxiety.
Right.
But I think there's also a premise there that's so valuable in overcoming it, which is that you cannot conquer what you will not confront. You really do have to feel the fear and do it anyway.
Okay, so
And
just
that's about being brave
stepping-
enough to do that.
Thinking back, like, so you're saying you need to conquer it, you need to face it. How do you know when you're going through it that I've got some serious issues going on
Yeah.
here? You know, how do you,
Well,
because
it
a lot of us...
interferes with daily life. So for me, you know, I was having palpitations and things. I was constantly stressed. I got to the point where I couldn't drive the car because I was too anxious. So when it starts to interfere,
Yes.
and you know, you notice that your life's getting smaller. So like, say you're in the world and you're in a big box, right? Like a massive box. You can do anything you like in that box. When you have anxiety, all of a sudden, like say you have a panic attack in the car, well, no longer now can I drive the car.
Just stop.
And then if I don't drive the car, well, I'm not leaving the house, so I'm in a smaller box. And just as the box gets smaller and you end up agoraphobic or whatever that looks like for you, because there's different types of anxiety, in coming back out of it, you just have to push the boxes back out. So just step by step. And when you're really anxious and your body's sensitised and you're so nervous and you're not eating and whatever, there is a certain amount of time where you do need to do some pulling back and you do need to self-care and you do need to reduce your schedule. But when you're coming out of it, it's important to challenge yourself,
Yes.
but not avoid.
You said a key word before, brave enough. Now, that's also the name of your foundation
Yeah, our charity.
and
yeah.
your charity. Can you talk to
Brave
us about Brave Enough?
Yeah, so Brave Enough is a charity, a registered charity in Australia. And Brave Enough is all about being real and doing life together to help people face their challenges and emerge stronger. So basically, that challenge could be anything. It might be anxiety and depression. It might be overcoming abuse. It might be that God's calling you to do something really special that you find is, you know, maybe a bit scary and you want to step into that calling. It could be anything in the world.
So Brave Enough is a tool that people can go to.
Yeah, so it's a
and
website,
be equipped, right.
essentially, that we have. There are different life topics that we have there with some resources. We do inspirational daily devotionals to encourage people. We've got a blog and a podcast. We've got events that we do too. Recently we had a conference called Beautifully Broken.
Right.
And the theme for that was, what if your biggest mess becomes your most beautiful message?
Oh, say that
great.
again.
What if your biggest mess becomes your most beautiful message? And that's essentially what God did for me. You know, I had all the media and the ministry going on and I had that anxiety and I was able to work through it. And, you know, I had abuse and different things as a child too that I've worked through. And so, you know, I'm living proof of what God can do.
Yeah.
And it's so true. Even in the Bible, you know, we see that so often, that God just takes the worst circumstances in our life and turns them into our biggest blessings and our biggest message. And I think if there's one takeaway that I would say to someone today, it would be that don't be afraid
Yeah.
of stepping into that. Don't be afraid. Trust what God has for you, because, you know, when we're working in our gifts
So
and
true.
doing what He wants, it's beautiful.
Thanks so much, Danni. Thanks so much for sharing your story with us, and God bless your ministry. Ladies, thank you so much for the chat, and thank you for tuning in. Don't forget, share, like and subscribe if you're watching us online. Until next time, have an awesome week. God bless.